The views expressed in this interview are those of the individuals and do not reflect the official policy or position of the U.S. government, the Department of Defense, the U.S. Navy, or the Naval Postgraduate School. Welcome to the Trident Room, brewer of stout conversation, unfiltered and on tap. On today's episode of the Trident Room Podcast, Trident Room Podcast host Dan Petersen sits down with members of the Fleet Weather Center in San Diego.
Good afternoon from the Naval Postgraduate School campus in Monterey. We're honored to have with us today two of the three members of the trial leadership from Fleet Weather Center San Diego, Commanding Officer Captain Kate Hermsdorfer and Command Master Chief Gene Douglas.
First of all, we want to take a moment and say thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come out and do this podcast with us. I'm Lieutenant Dan Petersen, and with me as a co-host is going to be Lieutenant Colleen Williamson. So quickly we're going to go through the bios and just a quick introduction as to the background and get into the conversation of what the METOC or Meteorology and Oceanography community provides to the force as support. And we're going to talk about a couple of different things going through a lot of different mission areas. We'll touch on some naval special warfare, some electromagnetic warfare, and then the fleet weather centers and the support that they provide as well. But we're going to do that through a little bit of a different avenue. We're going to go through the personal side about the people and the importance of the people and how they play into the mission and support as the METOC community. So without further ado, we'll start off with Captain Hermsdorfer's bio.
Captain Kate Hermsdorfer is a native of Simsbury, Connecticut, graduating with distinction from the United States Naval Academy in 2000 with a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics. She also holds a Master of Science degree in Meteorology and Physical Oceanography from NPS and Operations Management from the University of Arkansas. Before meteorology, though, she was a Naval Flight Officer and EA-6B Prowler Electronic Countermeasures Officer with the Lancers VAQ-131 on board USS Abraham Lincoln, where she qualified as an EA-6B Mission Commander and participated in tsunami relief in Indonesia. As an oceanographer, she served as Meteorology and Oceanography Officer, Strike Operations Officer, and Officer of the Deck Underway for USS Dwight D. Eisenhower in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. She previously commanded Naval Oceanography Mine Warfare Center, home of the world's finest mine hunters, at Stennis, Mississippi. Her other short tours include Oceanography Capabilities and Requirements Branch Head and Naval Deputy to NOAA Liaison Office of the Chief of Naval Operations Staff, Operations Officer at Fleet Numerical Meteorology and Oceanography Center here in Monterey, and Policy and Procedure Assistant Branch Head at the Naval Personnel Command. In January, she assumed command at Fleet Weather Center San Diego.
Master Chief Gene Douglas enlisted in the United States Navy in Minneapolis on July 19, 1998, and completed recruit training at Recruit Training Command, Great Lakes, Illinois. After completing Aerographer's Mate A School, or AG A School, he reported Naval Meteorology and Oceanography Detachment, Roosevelt, or also known as Rosie Rhodes, in Puerto Rico. Following his shore tour, he transferred to the Mobile Environmental Team, Norfolk, also called MET Team, where he deployed on board the USS Anzio and the USS Winston S. Churchill and supported numerous cruiser and destroyer and short missions. Following his sea tour, he attended AGC School for Forecasting in Biloxi, Mississippi. After graduation, he was assigned Commander 2nd Fleet at Norfolk as a forecast duty officer. After a short time on shore duty, he was selected for orders for Naval Special Warfare Development Group, Dam Neck, Virginia. That's where Gene and I first crossed swords, or paths. While there, he served on 2 deployments in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and 2 deployments to Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. He was selected to the rank of Chief Petty Officer in September 2010, while assigned to Riverine Group 1 in Virginia Beach, Virginia. He served initially as the Operations Leading Petty Officer, then took over as the Operations Department Leading Chief Petty Officer, or LCPO. From August 2012 to September of 2015, Master Chief Douglas served as Detachment LCPO, detailed to Special Boat Team 12, and then Naval Oceanography Special Warfare Center Development or Department LCPO at Special Reconnaissance Team 1 in Coronado, California. That's again where we kind of crossed paths, as I was at SDV Team 1 at the time, or SEAL Delivery Vehicle Team 1 out in Hawaii. In September of 2015, he reported to Commander Naval Meteorology Oceanography Command at Stennis Center, Mississippi, Space Center, Mississippi. There he served as the Battle Watch Captain for Commander Task Force 80.7, Assistant Future Operations Officer in Maritime Operations Center, LCPO, and later served as a career counselor and senior enlisted leader for the CINMOC staff. From February of 2019 until April of 2020, he served as Command Senior Chief at Naval Oceanography Anti-Submarine Warfare Center, then finished his senior enlisted tour at Fleet Survey Team, Stennis Space Center, Mississippi, where he was selected to the promotion of Master Chief. Master Chief Douglas currently serves as the Command Master Chief at the Fleet Weather Center, San Diego, in California. He graduated from the Senior Enlisted Academy and Command Master Chief of the Boat School and earned his Bachelor's of Science degree in Organizational Leadership from the University of Charleston in West Virginia.
Could you share a bit? So welcome again.
Yeah, thank you both for having us. We're excited to sit down with you today, and I think we're excited to do the podcast together in particular. And it's always interesting to hear yourself described, so thank you for those bios, which make my career sound much more exciting than it does on a lot of days.
Well, thank you again for taking time out to take part in this podcast. I think we're going to kick things off. I know we read through your bios and a little bit about your military service, but I think we want to kind of gear it a little bit more towards the personal side and understanding who you are as a leader and as a CEO of the Fleet Weather Center down in San Diego and what that kind of means. So we'll kick it off with the first question from Colleen.
That's very interesting careers for both of you. So now that we know that, could you share a bit about your personal and professional background leading up to your current roles and how you got here?
So I have wanted to be an astronaut since I was about 7 years old. I'm not an astronaut, but if NASA's listening, I'm still interested. But that started me on a path to go to the Naval Academy, which has graduated more astronauts than any other institution. And from there, I became a naval flight officer. And at about the 10-year point, realized that I still really liked being a naval officer, but wanted to do something different. And so did a lat transfer over to the meteorology and oceanography community. And I absolutely love this community. It is an awesome blend of science and also the operations, really understanding the operational impact. So I feel like having come up through aviation, it's been a really nice blend of understanding what it's like to use some of the products that METOC creates, but also helps me as a METOC officer to create things that are relevant, timely, and are going to make an operational and warfighting impact. I do love the METOC community, though. Small. I love that it's a small group. It's 300 people. We weave in and out of each other's career paths. It's been a great fit for me, and I'm really excited, both for the track that I took to get here, but also that this is where I ended up.
Yes, thank you. So I did not want to. I did not initially want to do meteorology and oceanography. I wanted to be a Marine. When the Marine Corps recruiter saw that I was only going to be a junior, he kind of shut his briefcase and said, "See you next year." So I went to talk to the Navy recruiter and decided that I was going to join the Navy. The three choices they gave me was aerographer's mate, corpsman, and I can't remember the third one. But I remember reading the description of an aerographer's mate, and it was I was going to get into a C-130 Hercules and fly into hurricanes and send back the data. And I was like, that sounds great, sign me up. To this date, I've only been on a C-130 Hercules with a parachute strapped to my back saying jump out. So I never got to do that. But I've nonetheless, I've enjoyed my time learning about meteorology and oceanography. I very much so enjoy helping shape the battlefield to put guys on target and make a difference in different operations going around the world.
So I think, Captain, you bring up a great point in the diversity in the background that comprises the meteorology community and oceanography community. Just between the two of you, you have an EA6B background and starting in aviation, and then Master Chief spent quite a bit of time in the Naval Special Warfare side of the house as well. So that just a range of gamut of understanding that comes into the METOC community from an operational standpoint. And I think that really kind of helps to contribute how we shape our support to the fleet. So thanks for bringing that up. And I think also it's kind of interesting you brought up the astronauts piece as well, and that the Academy has brought up more astronauts than any other institution. And I think NPS, which you're an alumni, also holds that title for graduating a large number of astronauts as well. So it's great to see how that interest and curiosity in science has really kind of come into play for the community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very thankful that that was the path that it got me started on, and for all the experiences that have come after.
So was there any real motivating factor that like, yes, I'm really interested in weather or oceanography that kind of pointed you in that direction, or was it just a path of fate that kind of aligned you into the community? And then once you kind of came into the community, how did that change, or how did your perception of the community change once you became a part of the community?
I think that our community does absolutely incredible work and delivers capability across a spectrum that is truly mind-boggling. There is not a ship or aircraft that gets underway or takes off without us. It starts with us. But beyond that, we are involved in every single warfighting area. That said, I had no appreciation for that. I did not know that. I think we have a little bit of a PR problem. So all the reason that I'm excited to do the podcast and talk about some of the great work that we do, I didn't know that. I really thought it was just kind of a straight 5-day forecast that came out of the METOC community. And so when I came over into the community, my eyes were open wide to the breadth of the experience and expertise. And for me, I really love EMW, electromagnetic warfare. So coming from the Prowlers that did electromagnetic jamming, it's been just a really great blend to be able to then apply a scientific understanding and prediction of the environment and how that plays with EMW, and how you find an area where you can have warfighting impact. To me, again, I didn't necessarily plan that because I didn't know that overlap was going to happen, but that's been really exciting to me in an area where I like to be able to rely on both parts of my career track to make a difference.
Yeah, I really didn't have a driving factor to get into this other than my recruiter told me to do so. But the longer that I've done this and worked in the naval oceanography, naval meteorology, and oceanography community, is I've bought into more and continually wanting to learn more, and hone the craft. I've learned some of my greatest lessons in forecasting when I missed a forecast. Some harder than others, but those are the things that have gotten me to a point where I want to, or the times where I have missed a forecast where I'm like, I really dig in to figure out how or why did I miss that forecast. For instance, AG-2 Douglas taking the USS Anzio back across the pond, across the Atlantic at the end of a deployment, by himself, without a forecaster. And a forecast as simple as they wanted to do a Steel Beach picnic on the way back, and they wanted a window of opportunity to do it, and I gave them a window of opportunity. Said it's going to be great during this time. We'll call it 13 to 1500, and it quite literally rained from 13 to 1500 during transit, and certainly AG-2 Douglas was called to the bridge and had to talk to the captain about it. And then I immediately went down to look at everything again and figure out why. And it turns out that young forecaster missed a shortwave trough moving through the area, or that we transited underneath as we were making the move. So that's one hard lesson learned. But it makes me want to be better. So,
for our non-Navy listeners, Steel Beach picnic is a picnic underway. But that was a great segue into the next question, though, Master Chief. What experiences or milestones in your careers have had the most significant impact on shaping your understanding of meteorology and oceanography, and why have you stayed to be the senior influential leaders that you are?
So that's great. The challenge for me is what gets me to stay doing it, doing this job. As previously stated, the things that when you miss a forecast or you miss something, trying to go back to figure out the challenge of figuring out why you missed it and what you missed is kind of the motivating factor for me, is to go back and figure out and get better.
I think it's kind of funny. That's one of the things that the METOC, or the meteorology community, is notorious for, is for our own command picnics and forecasting for our own command picnics. So if you're ever out there in need of rain, just try to schedule a METOC command picnic, and I guarantee it'll rain. I think we've all had some experience with busting one of those forecasts.
Absolutely, without fail. Yep. Every change of command, every picnic. Yep. We bring the bad weather. Colleen, for me, I think a lot of what I love about the community, like I said, is that we're a small community. And man, I get to work with some of the smartest sailors and junior officers and chiefs and civilians. And that is really what drives me to keep coming back. I learn from them every day. And then hopefully I can bring back some of the operational experience that I've had, or relay to them some of the experiences that I've had at the APNAV staff or at more senior levels, to help connect the dots with what they're doing. But it's the people, it's the small community, it is that understanding of science in these very niche areas and our ability to impact a warfighting area.
And I think that's kind of one of the unique things with you bring up in the METOC community being so small. And you mentioned it starts with us. It's such an individual based kind of ideology, and that's one of the reasons why I really appreciate that slogan, is that it kind of creates an environment of buy-in for the individual sailors out there. And we do have in the METOC community just a number of outstanding sailors that have that self-motivation and fearlessness to go out there and interact with a captain or an admiral as an enlisted sailor, to be able to provide recommendations on what's going to happen and shape operations. As Master Chief Douglas was talking about, as a young AG2 taking a warship across the Atlantic on his own. So there's a lot of buy-in, I think, with it starts with us, and it's much more on the person and the individual.
Absolutely.
So jumping into what Fleet Weather Center San Diego provides for the fleet, provides for Navy meteorology and oceanography, can you describe what the mission and objectives of your command are, and what aspects of that as two parts of the triad that you really want to push to the fleet?
Sure. So Fleet Weather Center San Diego is in charge of delivering safety of flight and safety of navigation and resource protection for an area that covers literally 2/3 of the globe. So from the West Coast all the way over through the Pacific to the Suez Canal. It is just an absolutely incredible span of the globe that we cover. And again, there's not a ship that gets underway or an aircraft that takes off without a forecast, either from the watch floor that's within our command, or one of the commands that falls underneath us that we support. And so that is just I think it's an incredible mission set. I think it's foundational, not just to naval oceanography, but to naval operations writ large. The other thing that I think makes us really special and really world-class is that we don't just provide the safety of flight or safety of navigation. It's also that we understand the operations and where ships and assets need to be. And so we're also helping to provide strategic positioning, access, maneuver, right? So making sure that if there is a fight, not only do we have people that are trained and did it in a way that was safe for the environment, but they can get to the fight when they need to be there, and then when called upon, we use the environment to create a tactical advantage. So it really spans a huge area as well as a huge scope of missions. But within the Fleet Weather Center in particular, it's really that safety of flight, safety of navigation with an eye towards operational impact.
I can't say it. I got nothing to add, ma'am. That was awesome.
Yeah.
So when we talk about Fleet Weather Center San Diego and their area of responsibility, there's also a number of subordinate commands that you're responsible for that kind of have unique mission sets. You mind just kind of walking us through some of the other commands that fall underneath your command?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So underneath Fleet Weather Center San Diego, we have a reserve unit that works with us, and they supplement not only the watch floor, but also a command called the SCOT, the Strike Group Oceanography Team, which is another one of our subordinate commands. And those are the teams that actually go out and deploy on the big deck, so your amphibs and your carriers, and they create that that team that does not only the forecasting, but also, again, those mission critical impacts based on an understanding of the environment. So that's the SCOT. We also have the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. So this is the team that is doing, I mean, these guys are and gals are absolutely world class, doing the forecasting for typhoons, covering again that Western Pacific, that huge breadth of the globe, and keeping our forces safe. And I'll tell you, like, there is nobody who does it better.
Yeah.
And they are renowned not just within the military, but also within academia and the public in general. And then the third or fourth command that we have under us is the NOAC, so the Naval Oceanography ASW Center. And they do primarily ASW. That's what they were built to do. So that's anti-submarine warfare. But we are seeing that when they go out and support ships, they're being asked to do so much more than that. They get underway to do ASW, but then they are doing things like supporting unmanned flights. They are doing your full spectrum forecasting, so electromagnetic warfare, strike forecasting, safety of flight, safety of navigation. And so we're starting to really expand their mission set to cover what it is that they're being asked to do and what they've already been doing. So really expanding from not just ASW to across that full spectrum.
Got nothing to add.
So I think that it's awesome you bring up the JTWC and the wonderful institution and support that they provide. And I think my kids kind of first learned about JTWC and watching the movie Planes, where Dusty Crophopper's flying across and comes into this interaction with a storm system. They mentioned JTWC had put out a tropical cyclone advisory alert during the movie. So spending some time out in Hawaii and getting to work with that team as well. Being able to relate that to my kids and talk more specifically about how that mission area works and what they do has been outstanding. So it's really awesome to see the different areas that the METOC community is in touch with and in tune with, and how we support various different entities as well.
And they all support each other too, right? So we at the Fleet Weather Center are using the forecasts that come out of JTWC. NOAC is using them to do resource protection as well as to inform setting up for anti-submarine warfare. And then the SCOTs are in constant contact with us as well, using those forecasts, and also, again, delivering that not just on an operational and positioning side, but also down to the tactics, right? Helping people pick which weapon system they're going to use or what time they're going to do a mission. It's really just incredible, and all those commands work hand in hand.
So you both have alluded to some of the challenges in operating in the marine environment. How do we collaborate with other military units or government agencies or even international partners to better cover a lot of that area and support the fleet?
Yeah. So it is challenging. It's data sparse, right? We don't have a lot of observations. There's not a lot of the models that are out there, right? They're not being fed by a lot of observations necessarily. And so it is so important that if we have a data source or a capability that we're sharing it across our partners, and that's across the Joint Force, that's also working with the National Weather Service. And I would say that right now, more than ever in my career, people are really wanting to partner. And it's been really exciting. So it's everything from making sure that our satellites are providing the information that not only Navy METOC needs, but on the Air Force side, right? And we're getting after similar challenges together. And we're also seeing that on the watch floor. So we partnered with the National Weather Service to use their forecasting toolkit, which is called AWIPS. And it's really given us, I would say, decades of an advance in capability that we're able to get into the hands of the sailors today. And so I think that appetite for partnership is the strongest I've ever seen, and it's really exciting. So anything from data to capability to overhead coverage, right? It spans the full gambit.
Yeah. One of the other backtrack just a little bit on challenges in the maritime environment that I'd like to bring up is the use of UUVs and also the use of ships with much smaller limits. It makes it a lot more work for a forecasting team to find or to forecast for an area that has 3-foot seas versus an area that has 12-foot seas. So that it does take a lot more time in analyzing and forecasting in such a broad area. to make sure that we're keeping ships with smaller limits safe.
I think you bring up a great point. For those out there, UUV is an unmanned underwater vehicle that we use to operate to do survey work and a number of different mission areas. But I think the big thing about the maritime domain and the challenges that it presents is that a lot of the processing happens with the human. So can you kind of talk a little bit about some of the things that our enlisted sailors go through for training to be able to develop the skills that they need to be able to support that kind of operations?
Absolutely. So when an AG comes into the Navy, they go to A school and they learn some of the initial requirements. How to take an observation, how to use some of our GUIs, graphic user interfaces, to make briefs. Then they'll go to a command after that, and they'll do their first tour and start learning and getting some OJT on what the science is behind forecasting, looking at models, how to paint an operational picture with that information. Once they get a little bit of OJT, then we'll send them back to school, which is a C school. C doesn't stand for anything. It's just a level of school within the Navy where they'll earn an NEC, their forecasting NEC, Navy Enlisted Classification Code, J00 Alpha. While there, they'll spend 9 months going through school and learning the science, the physics, what makes a area of low pressure deepen, fill, what helps force the way it's going to move in the atmosphere. And they take all that, so the science behind it, so then they can come back to the fleet and continue to learn more with the OJT side on the job training, on how to apply that in a tactical application, sometimes at the operational level, sometimes even as far up, as high up as the strategic level.
So you mentioned about the ANC school through the military. How does that translate into a civilian kind of accreditation, and does it really translate into a civilian application outside of the military?
It does a little bit. So there are some college credits applied to sailors that have the A school completion and the C school completion. Which credits are applied depends on the college that you would go to, the university that you select. Some and your career path, what your degree path would be, also plays a factor in which or if any college credits would be offered based on your experience as an AG.
I think that's pretty important to highlight. I know that throughout my career and my service, ANC school totality and duration is about a year-long worth of training that the military spends on each individual to get them qualified to be able to provide the support to operations that we ask of them. And even then, there's afterwards, as Master Chief was mentioning, on-the-job training. But for me personally, I know that I leveraged some of those school credits from the military towards my bachelor's degree, and affording my own personal education along the way. And it was really helpful for those accreditations to transfer over. It made it a lot easier for me to work towards my bachelor's while I was in the military, which it's a full-time job with a full-time schooling, so it can kind of be a challenge. But to see how the military really trains and translates to the civilian world, I think is really awesome.
Yeah, and I waited a long time to work to decide that I wanted to get my bachelor's degree. So I was a senior chief, had been in the Navy for 18 years. You also will get some credits just based on other experiences in the Navy as well. Because I waited so long to enroll and dig in to get my bachelor's degree, I only needed to take 10 classes before the school that I went with gave me or awarded me a bachelor's degree.
And I think education is such a huge part of the military these days, and furthering education from all the way from our enlisted sailors all the way through our officers, as we're sitting here at Naval Postgraduate School working on our master's degree for meteorology and oceanography. There's a lot of unique opportunities the military provides, as Master Chief was talking about a moment ago, with unmanned underwater vehicles specifically. So you get a lot of hands-on training with the latest and greatest technology that's out there in the world that may not even be in an academic institution yet. So you get access to training on systems and capabilities that you may not have direct access to in the civilian world. So there's a lot of opportunities that have been provided through education to the military.
And with that education, we want to go out there and provide accurate and timely meteorology support, but we never get heralded for making a great forecast. It's always we make the news when we missed a forecast, or there's a severe weather event or a natural disaster. We can't cover all of those training scenarios in school. So how do we prepare our sailors and our teams to go out there to maybe to prepare for those, but maybe more so how to go through the event in the best possible way?
Yeah, so a lot of that is lessons learned, right? So just in our experiences, the lessons that I learned the hard way, I certainly don't want sailors and officers that come behind me to learn those same lessons. So just as part of the just daily interactions and training as a chief petty officer, and training the team that I would work with to work up with to certify for deployment. There are a lot of things and wickets that we have to hit, but there's also the lessons learned that I learned the hard way that I don't want them to go through. So I take that into consideration as well when we're going through our workup cycle, and just hopefully in an effort to prevent that from happening to the next generation or the people coming behind me.
So we briefly kind of talked about education and technology, but I kind of want to more formalize it into how does that support our ability to improve our forecasting capabilities, and what does that really mean to us as far as operationals go as we start using more unmanned systems? How much of an impact does the METOC community have with the use of unmanned systems?
It's huge, right? I mean, unmanned systems are greatly impacted by the physical environment, and you have to understand both what the limitations of the unmanned system is, as well as maybe something in the physical environment that will help it be more effective, right? So it is more important than ever to understand and be able to predict the physical environment when you're talking about unmanned systems. Again, coming from an aviation background, we talk a lot about see and avoid. So if you know that there's thunderstorms in the area, isolated thunderstorms, as an air crew, you see them and you literally just fly around them, right? Some of these unmanned systems don't have that same kind of capability, so it is even more important to be able to do a really high resolution forecast, so really knowing exactly where those storms are, when they're going to start, and again, understanding the impact that it has on those unmanned vehicles. So I think it is more important than ever, and it's more challenging than ever. So we have to have better tools that allow us to, again, make a higher resolution forecast, but also tools that allow us to do it faster or in the most efficient way that we can, right? So like Master Chief said, if we're looking at 2/3 of the ocean, 2/3 of the globe, right, in this massive area, and before when we were just looking for, okay, where do you have 12-foot seas or where do you have 15-foot seas that are going to affect our assets? If you're having to look at any place that there's 5-foot seas, you are having to cover a lot more areas. And so anything that we can buy back in terms of automation or AI that helps us give that time back to that forecasting, as well as developing our own science, our own craft, our own expertise to be better, and again, to get that capability out forward.
I'm going to kind of pounce on a little bit and shift gears more onto your OpNav former role hat and how shaping requirements. For those who don't know, OpNav is responsible for developing requirements for future capabilities and outlining really what technology gets integrated into the force. So how does the requirements, how does it challenge you when you're in the OpNav staff to understand the technical aspects of each system and how it's influenced by the environment? How does the OpNav staff really challenge or tackle that problem set and defining it into a set requirement?
Yeah, it is really challenging. So a few years ago, the Oceanography of the Navy released a letter which essentially says that every platform is a sensor. So in other words, if you are developing a new platform, whether it be manned or unmanned, you should have a sensor on it that provides real-world observations that can be fed back to the operator, can be fed back into the models, right? And that will help us us as the METOC community do give better capability, better forecast, more timely forecasts, right? So using that mentality that every platform is a sensor, put some of that onus back on the program developers, because METOC community, like we talked about, is small. We're not everywhere. But I would say the other thing that we really try to do is just connect with our peers across different, we call them N codes, right? So across the folks that are working on the submarine portfolio, folks working on the aviation portfolio, on the surface portfolio, expeditionary, and letting them know who we are, and then trying to make sure that they come to us or that we go to them when we hear that there's a new platform being developed, and make sure that we're connecting. But it's challenging.
Ma'am, we had the opportunity to talk to you earlier today, and if I understood correctly, you actually did your 04 milestone tour before coming to NPS, which, unlike Dan and I, will do after NPS. But I really wanted to know how your experience as an aviator prepared you for that role and all of those brand new duties on the carrier, and potentially how your relationship with the enlisted and with your senior enlisted on board helped you through that mission.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say that coming from the aviation side, I was my 04 milestone was on an aircraft carrier, it was on the Dwight D. Eisenhower. So I knew my way around. I kind of understood the language. I understood the mission. Everybody who I worked for in my chain of command was an aviator. So all those things just helped smooth that transition. Understanding the mission, like I said, understanding the lingo, understanding the layout of the ship and how operations work. So that was a nice, I don't know if I was at a running start, but at least a walking start. But my team was absolutely the piece that was critical to my success. So I could come downstairs and tell them what I understood of what the challenges were going to be for the next week or so from an operational standpoint, right? We're trying to do small boat exercises, or we're trying to get through this big transit to be in position for the next exercise or operation, or we really need to be able to knock out a couple days of flight ops to get everybody day and night qualified, right? So I could come down and kind of deliver that operational insight, but then the team were the ones who took that and turned it into relevant forecasts. And so I had to be able to trust them to do that. And I don't know that I would have been able to help them even if I wanted to. So yeah, they were absolutely critical to that piece. And so having that partnership of understanding where I could add value, but then trusting them to do their craft and apply their expertise was really important.
So I think that brings up a great point of there's a lot of challenges that go into naval operations. And so I think one of the great questions is how does the METOC community manage risk associated with severe weather or natural disaster events, and how does that impact naval operations?
Master Chief, you want to take that one? No, just teasing. Can you say the question again, Dan?
Sure.
Let me think about that for a minute.
Sure. So how do you manage risk associated with severe weather events and natural disasters in relation to naval operations?
Yeah, so a lot of that is just trying to get out ahead of the problem as much as you can. So if you are watching the models and you see that there's going to be severe weather coming through in the next few days, right? I'd say the best thing and the most critical thing that we do as METOC is say, okay, where we think we want to operate at that time, that's not a winning solution with what we're seeing in the forecast. So we can provide options, right? So if you move or you change the time, you change the physical location, so giving people a path to get the mission complete, but while still avoiding that severe weather, but that really requires you to be out early in the planning process.
That's perfect, ma'am. The best way that we manage it is one of the things that I tried to make sure that we impart on chiefs as we were getting them qualified to be master forecasters. Is we already trust that they can forecast the weather and prepare the environment, but where we make our money is the managing piece, and by getting out ahead of that farther in the planning process, and even understanding what the operations that's going to happen, whether it's small boat operations, unrep, helo ops, fixed wing ops, understanding what that means and what that means within the operating environment. I think it's key that we are earlier in the process, so much so that we are shaping the operation instead of just letting the operation come to us, then saying, oh, by the way, Captain, we can't do that tomorrow because X and X thing. But if we're doing it right, we're early enough in the process where we understand that this is going to happen, and then we can say, hey, Skipper, I think doing this on 72 hours out by 48 hours out is better, and that just I guess that's just a way that we manage the risk, is helping shape when things or where things will happen in the environment.
It's incredible. It's great to hear from both of you and your experiences in the community and education and how you came to be in the positions that you're at. And we definitely appreciate your time for coming out today to do this interview with us. And we're gonna wrap up the first half. And there's so many more questions I wanted to ask, but we do have a limitation in our time. So. It was really great to talk about the METOC community, so hopefully people have a greater understanding of what the METOC community is and what we provide to the mission, and also talk about the different educational opportunities that are there for service members as they go out through their career. So thanks again for coming out and taking time out with us today.
Our pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. This has been fun.
Thanks for joining us in the Trident Room. For more information about today's guests and topics, please visit the show notes. The Trident Room has been brought to you by the Naval Postgraduate School Alumni Association and Foundation. For questions, comments, and suggestions, please email us at tridentroompodcasthost@nps.edu and find us online at nps.edu/Trident Room Podcast.